Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Josh the Animal Steel, here with my co-host, Dawn the Glamazon Phoenix. And today we're going to talk to you about SmackDown from the 13th of September. And Smookdoon. And this was a relatively big deal for SmackDown. It was their first episode on the USA Network. And it started out hot. We immediately have Alicia Taylor introduce Triple H, and Triple H comes to the ring to hype up the crowd that has attended SmackDown, and says that 25 years later, there's no better place than right here, right now in Seattle, Washington, and asks the crowd, "Are you ready?" I know, we were all shocked. We were all shocked that he hit us with that "Are you ready?" I wasn't ready for "Are you ready?"
I was not. Out of all the things that Triple H could have asked the audience, whether or not they were ready, I did not expect.
Yeah, and I mean, he might as well have asked, and if you're not down with that, he's got 2 words for you. Steel cage.
Guns up? Oh.
No, steel cage. They started
Right.
out with an undisputed WWE Championship steel cage match. We have Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa to get started. And if that doesn't feel like you're starting the show with the main event, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
And I think one thing you had mentioned during this match, because we've seen a couple of steel cage matches recently, most particularly Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page at All Out, yeah, and that match was absolutely insane. So,
by the way, if you've seen that match, then you are not the same person you were before you watched that match. It changes you. I know. Welcome to the club. So that was jarring compared to the Disney version of a steel cage match. And listen, it wasn't bad. It was not bad.
No.
But it's Disney compared to the steel cage match that we just watched. So, and it's still, I mean, 2 weeks from now, that steel cage match between Strickland and Hangman will still be fresh on the brain. So, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, and sorry,
comparing those two, I'm so sorry. Comparing those two, and you didn't ask me to, but I'm just gonna make like just a little general statement that for me, comparing those two, it would be unfair, because I don't feel like they're the same beast. Like they may be in the same category, but you know they could not mate and have children. You know what I mean? Like if they're out in the wild, they're not.
They're different species entirely.
Yeah. But I noted the blood. I don't know what it is about blood on Cody Rhodes, but it always looks fake. I don't know if it's his hair color or the general skin tone or how the light picks it up, but it always has like a pinkish tint to it where it's almost like candy blood. Like it's more.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I think part of it is it's always such a controlled little trickle. Which gives away the fact that it's just a very small blading cut, And I mean
Yeah.
we've all seen that. We've seen it in wrestling for a long time, but again, and that was why kind of the comparison between what we saw in AEW where like Paige and Swerve are like literally stapling each other with a staple gun. So the little bit of like, you know, shaving cut blood that, barely squirts out of Cody Rhodes just doesn't. It has a very fake look once you've seen the alternative.
It does, and I don't know what they can do about that. And because I mean he's really the only person that I've seen bleed that way. I've seen other wrestlers in WWE when they bleed, even if it's man a controlled like a controlled cut or whatever the case, it still comes off a bit more convincing. I don't know what it is about Cody. You're right. I mean, the little trinkle that we do get, it's like, well, that's cute.
Yeah, it's like that's
But
adorable when like we've seen by contrast, people literally dripping blood, like just a bloodbath. And so the little trickle just doesn't sit
yeah,
right. And now to
mm-mm,
WWE's credit and to be fair to them, they haven't had color. Like that's been banned for
yeah,
several years. So when it does happen like previously, it's typically not intended or it's the wrestlers doing something that they get in trouble for later. But
yeah,
I mean, if you're gonna do it, commit to it because your competition is showing people what really bloody wrestlers look like.
yeah. I mean, I can't. And I know I keep bringing up the AEW steel cage match, and I keep bringing it up and then saying that I'm not comparing the two. Sounds pretty much like comparison,
Yeah, it is.
honestly. But I mean, I can't really help it. Um, but that match between Strickland and Hangman, like that was therapy on that
Yeah,
was like for them, I mean, that was on a whole nother level. Like I people have said or they've commented that they're not sure that these two men like each other really, like they really think they hate each other. I disagree. I think that they are probably some of the closest uh men in the sport right now. Like I think those two are very close. Um not I I don't know, maybe that's a weird thing to say, but I think
no,
they would have to have a very close personal relationship to trust each other to do what they have done to each other in the ring. You can't
exactly.
just have some random. I wouldn't want
No.
some random dude that I don't know that I have never been in the ring with stapling me in the side with anything. Like, you know what I mean? Somebody that
Yeah,
I know, that I trust, that I've worked with, that I know is gonna take care of me in the ring. Okay, let's go. I know you. We connect on a completely different level. That's what I think's happening here, or there in any case, and I think that's what makes for really good emotional storytelling with that match.
yeah,
With that being said, the steel cage match for WWE, the Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa, was good. There were some
yeah.
really cool things that I saw Cody Rhodes do, and they gave Solo the opportunity to look alpha dog dominant. He looked real good in that match against Cody. I think,
He
his
did.
spinning, what is a spinning solo?
Hmm.
Yeah, his spinning solo twice. Yo, I'm excited when I get it once. My man,
Yeah.
my man said yeet, and then, oh, you didn't know, double yeet. I was all about it.
Yeah, I was happy to see it. One, I agree with you. It was nice that we got two of them, because he made it look amazing both times. Like
Hmm.
both Solo and Cody, because you got to give some props to the person selling it.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah, yeah,
so it did look fantastic, and I am preferential to it back when it was Solo's finisher in NXT. I've never been a big
yeah.
fan of the Thumb of Doom. Because to me that doesn't
No,
look terribly convincing as a finish. I think it's I don't know. I think it's dumb. But the spinning
I when I
solo I like a lot.
I try to separate uh fantasy from reality when I'm watching wrestling because I know I get it. And I love the hype of the match. Like I know that this guy isn't really uh near death. I know, but I like the hype. I love when so I love watching Sami Zayn when he's in the ring. When he's in the ring and he's been pushed to the limit, my man sells it, and I love it. I'm there for it. So I know that it's it is what it is. But the thumb, I can't disbelieve illusion long enough
Yeah,
to accept that this thumb is gonna crush somebody's windpipe. And you can't expect me to believe that this guy's windpipe has been crushed, by the way, and yet he's back next week. Stop it. Um,
exactly.
you
And
see, there's so many things here, and the thumb. You can't sell me on the power and the strength of the thumb. Okay, like listen. Let's say he gets somebody in the neck one good time, right in the throat with his thumb. I promise you, that's something that he's only gonna be able to do once for a minute. So it's
yeah,
not it's not gonna be something like, oh, my thumb survived unscathed. New finisher. No, nope,
no,
sure isn't.
no. And I mean, anybody who's taken like maybe like one or two karate classes growing up or anything, I mean anything, boxing,
Yeah.
anywhere,
Yep.
there's a very specific way that you're taught to strike, and you don't want to leave a finger or a thumb out like that. And so you take it all together. Like, I agree with what you said. We all know that this is a performance, that these men are not like actually cage fighting, right? That's a
For
given
sure.
conceit of pro wrestling. But the job of the performers is to achieve buy-in, to have a degree of
Yeah.
verisimilitude that makes it so that you can get lost in the fact that this is a performance and make you believe you were watching two men attempt to beat the crap out of each other. And
Yes.
to that end, it's a cop out to say, well, it's fake anyway. So is acting, so is theater, but you don't
Yeah.
get that excuse for a poor performance. And I'm not saying
No.
Solo performed poorly. I'm saying that particular maneuver does not achieve the verisimilitude that I need to believe that you're doing anything other than at most breaking your own thumb. Like, it's a
Yeah.
dumb move.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not a prize fighter. I don't box. I don't get into the ring. Um, you know, I but I have common sense, and common sense tells me that if I try to jab my thumb, the way that tape, listen, tape on the hand or not, bravo for you that you have tape. That means that when your thumb is fractured, it'll still be in the same spot that it needs to be when it's set again. So good for you. Like that's really all that you've done. But you can't tell me on a move like that uh being something that you could do multiple times for one. Uh like multiple times in one setting. Like you're standing there just nailing somebody in the throat with your thumb. Like it goes against everything that you've ever learned when trying to defend or fight.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
that's
about
that's
not,
my biggest problem with it.
folding your thumb in when you're making a fist so that you don't break it, or not holding it under your fingers so you don't break
Yeah,
it. I
it's
mean,
like no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, I mean, any kind of combat sport or any kind of like martial arts, one of the earliest things they teach you is throwing a punch correctly, and none of them teach you to, keep one of your knuckles out, like as if you were going to frog somebody. They teach you to secure your thumb around the other knuckles and to punch with the flat, because you don't want such a minimal surface area striking, or you will break that minimal surface area. That's why people
Yeah,
don't like 2-inch strike, with just two fingers, or like the thumb. It's just such a BS move, even for pro wrestling.
yeah.
So,
That what he said.
so I don't disagree with you that the match overall was good. I mean, it was a good match.
It was
And I
fun.
I think the invitation to comparisons is that, like, like with AEW's cage match, is that we see like that like AEW will do a particular match type and then the next week WWE will do the same match type, sometimes even the same angle, and vice versa, right? It's not a one-way
Mm-hmm.
copy thing. Like we noted in one of our earlier podcasts how both wrestling promotions sort of rediscovered the mixed tag match at the same time.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
it's no surprise that we just had a cage match, so now we're having a cage match over here in WWE. So
Yeah.
there is an invitation to comparison because they are literally competing with each other. And they often will follow similar trends for the match types and the storylines that they tend to go after. Um,
Yeah.
so that said, it was a good WWE cage match. And I say that because the cage didn't really do a ton. I mean, I think, you had an off the top of the cage dive by Cody that was fantastic. That flying
Yeah.
crossbody was amazing. But for the most
Did
part,
it?
it really just means that you kind of faux slam somebody into the cage a little bit. But what really made it a good match was the actual wrestling of the two men, and Solo and Cody both brought it pretty well in that match.
Yeah. I think so. Um, the one thing that I'm not a fan of that, and it's not just something that any one of these particular wrestlers does and no one else, but it's the headbutts. The rapid headbutts, I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
Um, they don't really make it look good. I haven't found or seen a wrestler that makes it look good, and I just wish they would stop.
No, I agree with you, and I have very strong feelings about like the rabbit punching and the repeated headbutts.
Yeah,
Because within the same like WWE kayfabe universe, you have things like Drew McIntyre's Glasgow Kiss, and it's been adopted by other wrestlers. I've seen Rhea Ripley do it as well. And that to me is how a headbutt should be sold. It is one incredibly devastating strike to the face with the butt of your head. So when you end up with wrestlers who will grab somebody and then just repeatedly headbutt them, it undermines the impact of what a headbutt like would be. Like that is a fight ender. A proper headbutt, like take boxing for example, and I'm making these comparisons because boxers really hit each other. Boxers who accidentally clack heads could be a fight ender.
yeah,
So a headbutt is not something that you're going to need multiple of, and it looks dumb when you apply multiple of them to anybody who has ever even accidentally clacked heads with another human being. Um, the other thing is like the little rabbit punches when they get into these like hockey fight things where it's just a slap fest. I think that looks
yeah,
terrible. I'm much more impressed by like the school of thought that's like Kurt Angle's old way of punching, like back in the day, or Samoa Joe when he goes for those jabs and he makes each one of those jabs sound like it's a shotgun that you just got hit with.
yeah.
Those are the kinds of strikes that I think sell better. That make me think, man, he has beaten the crap out of this guy. But when it's just this little like pop, 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 like over and over with the little rabbit punches that, sometimes they don't even go out of their way to make it look like you're connecting with anything. That
No,
to me looks terrible in terms of a performance.
I
Um,
agree.
so I'd
Now,
much prefer fewer but more impactful punches than like these rabbity punches and rabbity headbutts. They don't seem like they do
yeah,
anything.
yeah. It just and the camera can never catch it well. So you always see the huge space and distance between the
Hmm.
foreheads. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Um but I think this particular match was more about telling a story as a lot of bloodline matches can be. I think this one was more about the storytelling. Uh because of course we all knew that Rhodes is going to win the match. Um, but we also knew that the bloodline would intervene at some point. And I
Yep.
think they did so. I think they did so as soon as pretty much as soon as uh Cody won the match. Um and yeah, right after that, here come the bloodline.
Yep.
And I mean it's all of them, so you know we're not gonna go down. We all know their names: Tombatinga, Tink Tanging, and
Yep.
Tabatuka, and Jacob Fatu. Um,
So to summarize, after a heck of a match, Cody gets the crossroads off on Solo for the win, and then immediately following, as you said, the Bloodline show up and get into the cage, and so Solo nails Cody with the Samoan spike, and the Bloodline proceeds to just have their way with him. And
yeah.
it's not until it looks like Jacob Fatu is going to climb to the top of the cage, or he actually does climb to the top of the cage, and it looks like he's going to go for some sort of dive,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that the original Tribal Chief's music starts to play. And this is what we really came for, right? Like the cage match was nice, but there's really just not enough. I don't think they've given enough heat for anybody to super care about Cody versus Solo. That's just
Yeah.
like sort of the side dish while we're waiting for like Roman Reigns to hit. And we're all waiting for Roman to both beat the crud out of the fake bloodline, and we're also waiting for him to go try and get his belt back from Cody. So there's a lot of dramatic tension here. Um so of course the fans pop like crazy when Roman comes out, and he makes his way to the cage and steps inside and basically shuts the cage door, locking all of the rest of the bloodline and Cody Rhodes in there with him,
Because he's that one.
because he's that one. And it's Roman fins off most of the bloodline pretty well, but it's not too long before the numbers game catches up to Roman. But at that point, Cody's able to kind of step in and help out. But this is, of course, not before like Roman is tearing him up and he's going after Solo, and Jacob pulls Solo out of the cage. And then Roman invites Solo to get in. I'm sorry, not Solo. Invites Jacob to get into the ring. So it seems like they're. It seems a bit like they're kind of burying Solo, but putting over Jacob, because it seems like Jacob is conveyed as being a better opponent than Solo.
Right. And you know what though? If you recall, um they were doing the same thing with Solo when Roman was in charge. I remember, and Roman would keep Solo at bay. Uh the problem with that is we always saw we always saw Roman as the more dominant of all of them anyway. So whenever he was holding Solo back, um, it was kind of like, you know, the guy in charge holding back his right hand man. But when Solo is in charge, he hasn't been established like Roman has. So his dominance, his supremacy or whatever is questioned. It's constantly questioned, and it was never solidified before Roman came back. So he's never, like, he was getting there. He was on his way, but it didn't happen. So he's not the guy. He's not that guy. So when Fatu shows up, uh it's not even that Fatu and Solo are on are on even footing at this point. It's people are questioning whether or not Jacob Fatu would be a more stronger, dominant leader because they don't know if Solo. They still had questions about Solo. If that makes you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
Roman was solid. Roman was set. He was solid. So and nobody thought at any point when Roman was in control that Solo could overthrow him. They thought maybe he could step up and then that would be a fun match. But then Roman would squash that. That's what people thought. Nobody with Solo being in charge thinks that way. They don't think the same way about him that they do Roman. So yeah.
I fully agree, and I think the situation that they find themselves in is that if it just appealing to the fan in me, I think it could go either way if you had a match between Roman and Cody, right? They're on a similar
Mhm.
level. And that's
Mhm.
because at WrestleMania Cody did beat him. And I don't think anybody feels that way about like Roman versus Solo or Cody versus Solo. I think anybody would look at that and say Roman's gonna, unless there's cheating or interference, Roman will beat Solo 100 out of 100 times. And similarly,
Yeah.
they've more or less depicted that that'll be the case with Cody versus Solo. Again, unless there's interference or cheating. But we recently had Cody issue a challenge to Jacob Fatu. And that's a compelling match because they have put over Jacob Fatu to where he is eclipsing the entire rest of what is the current bloodline. Like, he's
Yeah.
clearly superior to Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and he is potentially superior to Solo. So it's
Yeah.
like we are in this weird spot where the henchman legitimately looks like he should be the guy in charge, and Cody issuing the invitation to a championship match to Fatu just solidifies that idea more. And then Roman coming out there and obliterating the bloodline and running Solo out of the cage and then inviting Jacob to step in similarly gives you the idea that Roman sees Jacob as a worthy challenger. And so they have buried everybody but Jacob.
Yeah.
Because nobody thinks that Solo is on the same level as Cody or Roman. Because he's never shown that
Yeah.
he is. He's never been able to beat either
Mm-mm.
one of them. And
Nope.
Jacob is left as this big question mark who, he outperforms everybody else in the ring with the bloodline. Like, he
Yeah.
just does. And so this fear that they had a while back of Jacob Fatu eclipsing Solo is absolutely justified, and I feel like they have actually fed into that more. So by all appearances, it looks like Jacob Fatu is the strongest member of the current bloodline. And if,
Yeah.
the head of the table is determined by like trial by combat, then why is Jacob Fatu subservient to a weaker leader in Solo?
Yeah.
So we have this very like strange situation with regards to the dynamics there. It
Yeah.
unless it's intended. I mean, if that's how they want it depicted, then fantastic. But if it's just sort of how it's coming across and it was not intended, then it's weird. But Jacob Fatu
Very.
very much
Yeah.
seems like he is absolutely the strongest, easily the strongest member of the bloodline, and that includes Solo.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, you're starting to see more attention from the guys who are a level up in Roman and Cody directed at Jacob. Now, with Cody, you could say it was a deliberate attempt to sow, seeds of discord. But you also see it from Roman, and maybe that too is also another way to sow seeds of discord. But it really just paints the picture that Roman and Cody think the only one worth fighting out of this new bloodline is Jacob.
Yeah.
But it did end up being a very interesting match, particularly there at the end, where you have Cody and Roman standing side by side, but then face to face.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of this three-way dance. Like, Cody isn't a fan of Roman or the Bloodline, but Roman isn't a fan of Cody or the Bloodline, and the Bloodline isn't a fan of either of them. So, is are Cody and Roman going to team up to deal with this new bloodline? And at some point they're going to have to deal with one another.
Yep. And that'll be an interesting day.
I think
Um,
so. It definitely makes the bloodline storyline easily the most compelling thing on SmackDown right now. And it
yeah,
was really good to have Roman come back. The bloodline storyline has been going on for years now, and it's had so many sort of like points where it just hovers that I think as much as people like it, I know for me, as much as I like it, I hate it when it stalls out at this point because I feel like we've been doing this forever.
yeah, yeah. I hear you. Yeah. So I'm pretty okay with the speed now. I mean, you could speed it up there just a little, but but so far, I'm I'm here for it. They're giving me interesting stuff
Yeah.
almost every week. There's something, some high drama, some new BS that's taking place. So yeah, I I'll live, I guess.
No, I agree. I'm not saying I want them to rush through it or anything like that. It's just that
I am. No, I'm kidding.
but stalling it out is equally painful. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
we had
yeah, yeah.
just gotten Roman back and then they put him through a table and it was like then we had a week where nothing happened really with the bloodline
Yeah,
and it was like, "Oh god, I'm dying." Let's get this show on the road. Um
yeah. He was taking a table break.
yeah, yeah. So that was the conclusion to the first match, and it was a good match. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I know we had some perspectives and some criticisms that made it sound like maybe we didn't think it was that good, but for what it was, a WWE cage match that advanced the Bloodline storyline, it was fantastic.
yeah,
Um, and then after that match, we are greeted by Kathy Kelly in the backstage area, who is with Nick Aldis, who informs her,
yeah.
that it
He
was
will
a
have order.
yeah, he was not a fan of the chaos, but he says that Solo reached out and he and Jacob Fatu have a challenge for a match that's an offer no one can refuse. Now remember that it's an offer no one can refuse. That becomes amusing later. And Aldous walks away after saying that the night is far from over. Well, I certainly hope so. We've had one match, Nick. Um,
And he will have order.
and he will have order.
There will be order in his house. Yeah,
He's not going to put up with that chaotic freak show that is Monday Night Raw over there, run by
yeah,
Pierce. Um,
yeah,
so after we all got a taste of like some more bloodline progression, which let's face it, that's what we're all watching for at this point. Like that's the show. We then end up with a match involving Michin versus Piper Niven and Chelsea Green, and I feel like the match was okay, but this is a very filler feeling match,
yeah,
and um, I know they're trying to get something started with Michin. I feel like they're trying to give her a push, but it was only an okay match. Like it's nothing really super stood out. And ultimately, unlike when Piper interfered when it was Michin versus Chelsea Green, and if I recall correctly, Chelsea was able to get the win. In this one, Chelsea doesn't interfere and Piper loses, and then afterwards they beat up Michin. So really didn't work
yeah,
out so well for poor Piper.
yeah. Um, there wasn't really much here. I Chelsea and Piper wanted to make fun of Michin because of the garbage can fiasco of of 2024. She didn't care for that too much. She laid the smack down, and she won, but then they beat her up.
Yeah.
and gave her the unprettier through a trash can,
Yeah. And
which looked good, but ouch.
well, I agree with you. I like Chelsea's sort of jumping version of the unpretty her. Um,
Hmm.
like the homage that she's paying is to Christian Cage or just Christian for WWE fans, and the unprettier. And Christian usually just kind of spun him around and then just dropped down. Whereas
Yeah.
Chelsea like is doing this whole jumping kind of smack thing, so it ends up looking like a combination of the unprettier meets the pedigree, and it looks good. So
Yeah.
that part was good. I'm just saying, like, as far as like any kind of heat or build up or even the match kind of overall was just meh. Like it was just there. Like
Yeah. I
nothing to
agree.
write home about.
No.
And let's see. We then end up coming to Kevin Owens and mystery partner. I know they tried to say mystery partner, but like I think it was fairly obvious early on that his partner was going to be Randy Orton, and for some reason they tried to swerve us
Um,
on that.
what are you
Um,
talking about? Ricky. I thought it was Ricky.
Ricky, yeah, absolutely. I was wondering why we hadn't seen more of Ricky prior to this night. Um, so Kevin Owens comes out and they're saying his mystery partner, and it's this relative unknown who I guess is a wrestler, but
I
it
guess.
looks like it's local talent, a guy named Ricky, like typical jobber McJobby pants.
Yeah.
And
And
A Town Down is making fun of him, and they're all like, "Who's this guy?" And Kevin's like, "He's my partner. It's Ricky." And
this is Ricky. You know
they
Ricky. Everybody knows Ricky.
he says Ricky wasn't his first choice, and Ricky's like, "But I was your second." And he's like, "Well, now hold on." And and then I think it was one of the refs like had spoken with the announce table or something, and you find out that his partner who couldn't previously make it because of travel issues has actually made it. And I know, to the shock and awe of everyone, and I mean no one actually.
Shocked like the people who were shocked when Triple H asked if we were ready.
Yeah, those people would be shocked at this turn of events. But
Yeah.
it turns out, and you get ready. Are you ready? Kevin Owens'
Oh boy.
mystery partner was Randy Orton. I know, I know. Let
What?
the shock just wash over you.
Let the shock hit the bodies on the floor. You know what? I'm tired. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny you should mention bodies on the floor because literally the second that Kevin Owens finds out that Randy Orton was in fact able to make it, he apologizes to Ricky and then stunners Ricky completely out of the ring, and we never see
Yeah.
Ricky again.
Poor
Um,
Ricky.
poor Ricky, but
Rip.
good for all the rest of us who were watching the show. And that is how they start this match. And so immediately we've got a pretty hot start between Owens and Waller. And on the whole, it was a decent match. I'm a pretty big fan of watching, when they let them Waller and Theory actually do their thing. Both of them are good enough wrestlers, even though they're portrayed as like dorky heels that no one should want to even like. Um, and they go back and forth. There's this really long part where Kevin Owens just cannot get the tag to Orton. Like
Yeah.
because it's
Oh.
like they know the thing you want to see is Randy Orton getting that ring, right? And
Yeah.
so several times Kevin Owens is thwarted attempting to get back to make the tag.
I could feel the frustration when it was happening too. Every time I was like, "Ugh, stop it!"
Yeah, he would get so close. They got really kind of creative with how they kept him from getting the tag. And then
Yeah,
to Owen's credit, or the producer, I don't know, whoever's idea this was, instead of being the typical, I finally get like within 2 feet of the corner, at which point I exhaust all of my energy to jump like 10 feet in the air to make this tag. They actually had Kevin roll out of the ring, run around to the other side, jump back in the ring, and make the
yeah,
tag. And I'll give him credit. I see a lot of the exact same hot tag shenanigans like in these tag matches, like to the point
yeah,
that it's like we can predict exactly how this is going to go. This was something different, so I give them
yeah,
credit for that. I definitely liked that Kevin Owens kind of had a different approach to getting that hot tag. And of course, once he
yeah,
makes the tag, the everybody in attendance just loses it. Because it finally happened, right? Like it was so frustrated, and it's like we all want to see Randy Orton beat these guys up. So that and Kevin
yes.
was just getting beat up in that corner, and after a bit, I mean, I know it's storytelling, but it's only interesting to have a guy brought back into the corner and punched like for so long. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's
absolutely agree. Yeah,
so. But once Orton got into the ring, he is just dropping like those power slams that he does, the ones where he claps his
mhm,
hands before he does it,
yeah,
and they end up more or less just beating the life out of Waller in theory. And there were a couple of really fantastic spots. There were spots where, of course, Randy Orton does the backdrop suplex onto the announce table. I think he got both Theory and Waller.
yeah. I think so.
And I may be skipping over some spots because I'm trying to just remember like the biggest and best ones, but the one that really popped, the one where like Randy Orton smiled with the genuine joy of a child on Christmas
Yeah,
morning, was when he
yeah,
went for the draping DDT, his signature that leads into the RKO, and uh, Kevin Owens grabbed the other opponent. I don't remember who was on who. It may have been Orton with Theory and Owens with Waller, but I'm not
the other way
100%
around.
sure. The other way
The other
around?
way
Okay.
around. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they both line up for the double draping DDTs, and it was everything. Like that was so much pop. But then to follow it up, Kevin Owens and Randy Orton both sort of do the throwing a fit kind of setup for the RKO. And
Yeah.
so they both hit their finishes. Randy hits the RKO, and Owens hits the stunner, and that allows Randy Orton to pick up the win. And on the whole, this was a very fun match. Not a
Yeah.
ton of heat between like Theory and Waller. It's more like I feel like Kevin Owens has the heat that's with him versus Theory and Waller, but it's not like a severe heat. It's more like Waller and Theory are annoying, and Owens just likes punching both of them in the face with one hand with a single punch. Um,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like a big grudge, right? Like it's just that Waller and Theory are the people that you like to see get their asses beat because they're obnoxious.
True.
But it was a really nice match with some fun spots and a lot of fan service. Like you know, they understood the assignment. It was a good
Oh
match.
yeah. Yeah. But fan service out the wazoo. But yeah, good. Good all around. Fun.
Fun, good.
Mhm.
And I'm happy anytime I get to see Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Like either of those two men or both of them together. You're going to get a decent match. Kevin
Yeah.
Owens is solid, and Randy Orton, especially since he came back as the incredible Randy Orton Hulk, is just impressive to watch in the ring. Um, I think he may have
When you said
sacrificed. a touch of speed and agility to have that much size, but goodness gracious, not so much that it matters, and he's built like a
Yeah.
brick shit house now.
Listen, when you said Kevin Owens solid, Randy Orton, I thought you were gonna say solider.
I mean, that's not wrong. Randy Orton, like, just blew up. He used to be a relatively thinner, skinnier wrestler. It's kind of like the difference
Yeah.
between going back and looking at like some of the Rock's work in the 90s versus how he's
Mm.
built now. Like he
Mhm.
was always like a big guy with decent musculature, but there was a point where he looked like he had dropped a lot of weight to be more nimble and have more
Yeah.
cardio. And then since leaving wrestling, he blew up like a bodybuilder. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's the same for Randy Orton, who was always very lithe, like the Viper, very serpentine snake-like movements. And now he's come back and he's Randy Orton, the bodybuilder.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just jacked now. And he's definitely put on a lot of weight. He points out, and we have noted that the nameplate when he's coming to the ring that they show for him, it includes his
Mhm.
weight, and it says something like 250, and he's actually closer to like 300 now. Like he's 290
Yeah.
pounds, so he's a big dude. Um, but a very very fun match. That one was really enjoyable, even though it wasn't like a major storyline or anything. It was just a good
Yeah.
match.
Agreed.
And from there we come to Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton, Bailey, and Naomi.
Well, before that though, Nick Aldis, we went back to Nick Aldis's office, where he basically gave us the challenge:
Oh
Solo
right, yeah,
Sikoa
yeah.
and Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes at Bad Blood, and that Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa had already signed, so they were ready to throw hands. Uh, he needed to talk to Roman and Cody, and
Well,
Cody just tell
but I mean, then it's a done deal, right? Because remember, it was a match that no one could refuse.
right, yeah. But then Cody's like, nah, I'm done with the bloodline. As far as the bloodline are concerned, that sounds like a Roman Reigns issue. That's a Reigns problem, and he was not signing that contract. Uh, and Nick Aldis was like, well, shite. Uh, like he tells Kathy he needs to go. So I have to go talk to Reigns, and so he goes off and he goes to talk to Reigns, and then Nia Jax, Bailey, Tiffany Stratton, and Cakes McGee.
Cakes, Mickey. You mean Naomi?
Yes, Cake Omi. Nothing. Cake Omi.
Absolutely
That was I.
everything. Cake Omi was excellent. You caught me taking a sip of my little drink. Um, so yeah, it's not actually a match per se. This is a spot in the ring where Nia comes to the ring and talks about how easy it was to win Queen of the Ring, and how it's even easier, or was even easier, to win the women's championship. And
Yeah.
she says that Nick Aldis informed her that she'll be defending her title at Bad Blood, and she pretty much says she doesn't know or care who her opponent will be because the end result will be the same. She's going to annihilate them. And that, of course, is when Bailey comes out to the ring.
Yeah. Ding dong, idiot.
You stupid idiot. Um,
Yeah.
and she basically tells Nia that Nia had the greatest year of her career, but she didn't set the bar very high for herself. Um, Bailey says she's glad that Nia's feeling confident
Sick
because
burn, by the way.
sickest
Sick
of
burn.
burns. Like, totally. I'm amazed Nia could even stand in the ring being so crispy.
Yeah. Scorched. Insta scorched.
But Bailey indicates that she wants her rematch for the title. And so that leaves her and Nia face to face in the ring, and Nia tells her that Bayley's in no position to demand anything from her. She says it's not like last year where she was running SmackDown hiding behind the rest of Damage Control. And that
Ooh, so cold.
Nia now runs SmackDown and doesn't need a posse to do it.
Damn. But then Bailey was like, "Oh, then what is Tiffany? Is she not your workhorse? Nia?" Some
Yep.
high drama.
She does indicate that Nia required Tiffany to win the title, whereas she did not require Damage Control.
Yeah.
And of course,
And
that
then
is the cue, right? You said the name,
yes.
like as Kevin Owens pointed out, you say the name, they come to the ring. That's how this works. So
Yeah.
Tiffany got
And
mentioned, and Tiffany decided it was Tiffy time.
and if I may, let me recap for you all what Tiffany essentially said. Here we go.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah.
Good spot. No, just kidding. She comes out and tells Bayley that it's pathetic and Nia knows better than to listen to her. And I'm sitting there, I remember her saying that, and I'm thinking, why would Nia feel like, I mean, why would Tiffany think that what Bayley's saying to Nia is something, like, it sounded very weird to me. Like, methinks thou doth protest too much. Like, you're worried that people are getting into Nia's ear about you.
There are so many Tiffany voice jokes here that you are just handing to me, and I refuse to lower myself. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Go
I'm
for
just
it.
kidding.
Go for it.
No. Tiffany, she came out and she basically, said, "Nyah, nyah, nyah, nyah," and then she was like, she knows better than to listen to you. And I'm like, I think she knows
Oh
better than
my
to
God.
listen to you.
I had no idea we had Tiffany Stratton on the show. I just heard her.
Yeah, it was quick. We couldn't pay for too much. Just just enough for her to make what she
Wait. Before
said.
she goes, can we get a "It's Tiffy time"?
It's taking time.
Wow, it's like she's here with us for real.
Oh my god. Yeah. So Tiffany comes out and she tells Bailey that it's pathetic. It's how pathetic, and that Nyla, sorry. Nia knows
Yeah,
better than
Nyla.
listen to her and blah blah blah. What did she say? She said that she didn't have to beg for her title opportunity like a peasant. Um, and Bailey was like, "Well, peasant. This peasant beat the youngest Miss Money in the Bank ever last week. Big Bird. You know what? You know what? I want Bailey, if you're listening, because we know how everybody listens to this podcast. Calm down, everyone, please, please. This one is directly to Bailey. Bailey, when you listen to this podcast, I would like a job. Okay? Like, listen, hear me out. All I want to do is stand behind you and hand out packets of aloe vera after you drop a sick burn on somebody. That's my job. That's what I want to do. Call me up, hit me up. My people will call your people. We'll make something happen.
Well, I mean, that was a pretty sick burn, but
Sick burn.
then Tiffany almost said the quiet part out loud, right? She tells Bailey that the only reason she won was because Nia got involved, and that
Yeah.
immediately went poorly for Tiffy because Nia just turned and looked at her like, "The hell you say?" And
Oh my
Tiffany's like, "Oh,
god.
no, 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 I didn't mean it like that." No, she totally meant it like that because that's what happens,
Totally.
right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
Tiffany got involved in Nia's match, and while there was a moment where they were trying to, "Oh, she's thinking about using Miss Money in the Bank on her," Tiffany's involvement actually helped Nia win the match. She still laid
Yeah.
out Bailey with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Whereas Nia just got up on the ring apron and distracted the ref while Tiffany was trying to get a pin. So
Yeah. At the exact time needed for her
at
to make
the
the pin.
exact time needed. Yeah, so Nia's help was in fact zero help, like none.
Yeah. Big help. Big help is her new name.
Big help Nia. I like it. It fits. And so Nia then says Bailey is smart. Ooh, super sick burn. And and that somehow she almost had her, just like she would almost have a prayer if she faced her in a match. And that
Mhm.
is when Naomi comes out and more or less says if they want to fight, they can fight. Um, and
Just really loudly. She said all that just really loudly. Like put the microphone directly in your mouth and just scream and you have what Cakes McGee said.
yeah, essentially, I also think I may be misremembering, but didn't Nia say something like there's absolutely nothing keeping us from beating the heck out of you right now? And that was when Naomi came out.
Yes. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
there was that as well. Um, so we're basically setting up a bad blood match between Naomi and Bailey versus Nia and Tiffany Stratton.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that could be a very fun match. I like all of the women involved are very credible in the ring. Bailey is
Yep.
OG. Nia has gotten a lot better than the last time she had a run with WWE, at least that in my recollection.
I
Tiffany,
agree.
all jokes about her super annoying character aside, is absolutely aces with her in-ring work.
Oh, no, listen. I joke about Tiffany being annoying and her voice being a pitch that only dogs could hear sometimes, but I am joking. I'm joking. That woman can tear it up in the ring. She reminds me a lot of a young Charlotte Flair. Um, she's got it, man.
Yeah,
She has it,
yeah.
and I think she, as long as she stays healthy, uh stays focused, I think she's got a nice future
Yeah,
in wrestling.
she's absolute champion material, and Naomi has been absolutely stellar since she's made her return as well.
Oh yeah, of
Um,
course. Yeah, yeah,
Now at first
yeah.
I think it was pitched as this idea of like a three-way dance where it's Nia, Bailey, and Naomi, and whoever wins would, or no, a triple threat between them. But Nia counters by saying, no, not a triple threat. We're going to do a tag match, and whoever gets the pin can face her at Bad Blood. Although that left me with some questions. Like, I get what would be the situation if either Bailey or Naomi wins. Then the one who gets the pin gets the match. And I kind of see where Nia is coming from because that might make Naomi and Bailey fight each other for that pin. But what happens if Tiffany gets the pin on their team? Like, is there just nothing that happens if Nia
Yeah,
and Tiffany win? Like, they didn't really clarify that.
they did not. No,
Well,
and go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think they did add a writer now that I recall. Like, wasn't it something like it's not specific whether it's Nia or Tiffany has to get the pin, but I think they said um, whoever loses has to leave SmackDown permanently. Now,
Right.
now does that mean that like both Naomi and Bailey have to go, or is it like based on who gets pinned has to go?
I think it. I think it has to do. Well, like whoever loses. Okay, so let's say, um, and she's saying Tiffany. She's saying Tiffany and I. Okay, so basically, uh, whoever gets pinned is the person that has to leave SmackDown permanently.
Okay, so it's either going to be Bailey or Naomi, but not both.
No, 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 but not both. Which would be weird, if both of them. Because I mean, what's the punishment? They just go to
Raw?
Monday Night Raw, both of
Yeah.
them.
So,
So what two women would be coming from Raw to SmackDown? Hey, maybe they both do have to. I don't know, because they don't actually say. They just say
yeah.
whoever loses leaves SmackDown. That's it, permanently.
Yeah, so
And
I'm
then
not sure if it's both of them or
Tiffany's
oh,
addition to that was Toodles.
yeah.
Oh well,
Uh let's see. So maybe it's whoever gets pinned. So that's what I'm thinking. So if if Nia and Tiffany win that match, then that would mean that either Naomi or Bailey are moving over to Raw.
they got it. Okay, well, I think that's going to be the case. I think that they're going to lose. Like we haven't really talked about any predictions on this particular episode, but I think that they're going to lose the match that they're setting up there, and they kind of have um, to get some drama going. Just like I don't think that Roman and Cody are winning the match against Solo and
Jacob?
Fatu. Yeah, and they can't though, because at that point the bloodline wouldn't be a threat. They gotta lose. That Roman and Cody have to lose this match. Um, or else
Mayhaps.
I don't know what they're doing, man. Like you can't you can't get in there and just waffle stomp these guys and then have try to get the audience to believe, because it to me basically at this point it's like taking Damien and Rhea out of the Judgment Day and not making Judgment Day look like a credible source. That's essentially where we are now with the bloodline when it comes to Roman Reigns. You're gonna put him up with freaking Cody Rhodes, then you just created a tag team that if they work together, good luck. Good
What?
luck. Anybody, right?
Yeah.
So you have to give us something. Because now these two dudes, the guy who is the head of the table and the guy who defeated the head of the table, going against the bloodline still feels like the bloodline is outmatched. It still
Yeah.
feels that way. So they're gonna have to do something to make the bloodline viable, credible, and they're gonna have to do something to progress the story. And Roman and Cody winning doesn't do that, not in my opinion.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I think we have combustible elements here. Um,
Hmm.
one, I think the bloodline doesn't care if they win or lose as long as they get to like beat the heck out of both Cody and Roman.
I
And I
agree.
think they're supposing that Roman and Cody won't be cohesive enough. Like they won't be able they'll end up at each other's throats.
Yeah, I think they're looking at it that way. But I don't know how heavily they could rely on that. Um, because I mean, we saw Roman and Cody not getting along Friday, and they still whooped ass. So you don't want them to be on the same track. You don't want
Yeah.
these two dudes. You don't want them to go. You know what? Let's work together now, because that's a bad time. That's a bad time.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that whole situation becomes more relevant because following Tiffany and Nia and Bailey and Naomi, they cut backstage, and Nick is telling Kathy Kelly that he spoke to Roman Reigns, and Roman will tell everyone his answer after the match that is next.
Yeah.
Um, and that moves us to the next match, which was, what is it now? Match number 5 between Andrade and
Four.
Carmelo Hayes. It has to be
Fourth match.
5, doesn't it? Because Andrade beat Carmelo twice, and Carmelo beat him
Oh,
twice.
I see. No, you're saying five between them, not the number of match
Oh
of the
yeah,
night.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Not match of the night, but the number of times Andrade and Carmelo Hayes have now met in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, the four times. So this is number five. This is the tiebreaker
So
between the two.
I feel like this is something that they really wanted to build up, like this rivalry, and yet I feel going into it like I'm a little tired of seeing Andrade versus Carmelo.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this tiebreaker puts an end to that, because it really has been like the past 4 SmackDowns we've seen Andrade and Carmelo wrestle. So it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do for me. I can't speak for everybody, but it has a lot to do with the character that Carmelo has here. Um, it just it's so generic. Um, and it's hard for me to it's hard for me to invest anything in this particular character. It's generic and whiny, and he reminds me of an annoying, mouthy NPC, or the guy in or an '80s cop movie that can't shut up. He reminds me of that guy,
Well,
and ugh,
I think
unnecessary because he's amazing in the ring. Meh.
I kind of think that they undermined Hayes early on. Like at first when he got drafted,
Yeah,
they had him go into a match with Cody Rhodes, and it was a good match.
yeah,
And slowly since that time, Carmelo has become less and less of like known for being a very strong in-ring talent. And it doesn't help that there have been some spectacular botches that he's been a party to. Him and
yeah,
Austin Theory had that one match where Theory went for sort of the like rebound Spanish fly, and that just fell to the ground and looked like a collapse. And there was similarly a Spanish fly off of the uh, timekeepers area, I guess, the little kind of guardrail barricade that's right there. And
hmm
that also looked like a crash landing. Like it looked like Carmelo took it on the head more than he should have, but they continued the match.
hmm
Um, but it's over time whittled Carmelo into seeming like he's a bit cowardly and a bit shady instead of this
yeah.
really super talented young competitor. And I don't know that that's done him any favors. Like, remember when
Nope.
Andrade showed up at the quote unquote barbershop set, and, Carmelo is heard saying, like, we need some security. Just anybody can walk in here. And it just
hmm
makes Carmelo seem like he's weak. And, the finish of this match didn't do him any favors in that regard either.
Yeah.
Long story short, the match basically is a similar match that you've seen at this point for the 5th time, but they did do a good job of kind of having the two wrestlers counter each other's moves a little bit more to sort of reflect that this is the 5th time recently that they fought one another. And
Yeah.
on the whole, it was a good match, but it is the 5th of these matches that we've seen over the past 5 weeks. So it's a mixed bag in that regard. Maybe just for me, maybe other people don't care, but for me, I'm like, I've seen this already like so many times. And they did have a nice finish to it though, where Carmelo ends up putting Andrade onto the top rope, and it looks like he's trying to go for a Hurricane Rana, but then Andrade blocks it and ends up picking up Carmelo to deliver the message. Sort of his double underhook spinning neck breaker from the top rope, and that got the finish in the pin. So in the best of five, or the best of three, I guess, series between them, out of the 5 matches, Andrade ends up coming up on top. And presumably that means that makes Andrade the number 1 contender for LA Knight. And of course, the nanosecond Andrade wins, LA Knight comes out. And he it's unfortunate that I feel like Andrade has a bit of a language barrier, because LA Knight comes out and just reads him the riot act, and it's almost like Andrade didn't even understand half of what LA Knight had said to him. Because when they cut to Andrade, it's like he's not responding to any of what LA Knight said. He's just telling LA Knight that he's going to get you and that belt's going to be his. So it was an okay segment, but like, I find myself not caring about it nearly as much as I think the WWE wishes people did, and I assume I'm a person, so I assume other people might feel similarly.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good match. That is true. It was a good match. It just, like you said, I'm kind of over it now. And I would like to, I'd like to do something else now. I'd like to see something else. We've had a good run. That was fun. Let's move on now. Let's give Carmelo something else to do too. Um, please. Anything other than walking into other people's promos, interrupting them, laughing with a fake laugh, talking about how he's the best, or him. Anything other than that.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like they're not sure what to do with Carmelo, so they're just trying to put him wherever they can fit him. And that's unfortunate because he was massive in NXT. But I mean, you could say that about a lot of people.
You think maybe it has something to do with the chemistry that he had with Trick?
I definitely don't think it hurt, but I mean, Carmelo, I think, could do it on his own as well. I just don't think that they've got a proper spot for him. And I don't know what to make of the fact, like, in NXT, he was a very solid performer. And I don't know if it's nerves or whatnot, but like, he is coming across as being a bit reckless in the ring at times. He's not nailing the spots as well as you would hope he would, because that's kind of a selling feature of him being him. So he might just need a bit more work, but I also kind of don't think the WWE knows exactly what to do with the guy. So I guess time will tell. But I know what they didn't do with him. He's not proceeding to have a world title match, or a United States Championship match, I mean, with LA Knight at Bad Blood. That's going to go to Andrade. Yeah. And I'll be perfectly honest, while I don't see a ton of heat there, like, this is just like champion versus number 1 contender, it should be a good match. Andrade is a very good in-ring performer, and LA Knight is also good, so it should be a solid match.
Yeah.
But
I fully expect to see a getting.
I think so. But moving on from that particular match and segment, we are returned to the backstage where Byron Saxton is with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. And Bianca says that they're excited to be at SmackDown, and even more so to be the champions again. And Cargill also chimes in and lets, whoever wants their championships can come and get them.
Yeah.
And that's when Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton show up. And Nia asked Bianca if they had heard what happened to Naomi, and Bianca says, no, what happened? And Nia says, nothing yet, but if she sticks her nose in Nia's business again, she's going to get hurt.
Not
and
even
I'm like,
funny.
so are you inviting the tag team champions to come and like interfere in your match with Naomi? Because it's what it sounds like you're doing.
Yeah.
And then Nia takes the opportunity to tell them that while the tag titles look good on them, she beat both of them on her way to becoming Queen of the Ring. And I'm thinking, did you though? Like, you fought a knee-injured Bianca and you tricked Jade into, hitting you with a chair. So, I mean, you won. That's true. I'm not saying you didn't, but it wasn't like you beat either one of them's butts to do it. Like, not really.
Yeah.
Those are the sort of asterisk wins that fall on somebody like Liv Morgan.
Yeah.
So I'm not real sure exactly what the point of that promo was. Like, so you came out to inform the tag champions that Naomi's gonna get hurt. So I mean, like, where do you go with that? Like, to me, it sounds like you're asking the tag champions to come out and interfere in that match to beat your ass for threatening Naomi. So it was weird. It was weird because, like, there's no intersection of like what Nia and Tiffany are doing with the women's championship and the tag belts. It just sort of seemed odd to me, I guess.
Yeah.
But following that match, as Nick Aldis had promised, Roman Reigns then comes to the ring, presumably to offer his answer or some answers with regards to the tag match. And I'm not sure what we would expect because, like, Cody opted out, so it's like, so apparently there's no more tag match, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
And Roman pretty much extends his hand to get the microphone from Nick Aldis, who is also in the ring, once he makes his way there, much like he would always do with Paul Heyman. And it's like Nick Aldis apparently is either feeling facetious or has never seen the show, and he hands him the contract.
No, I was saying never. Like, he's never ever seen the show. Like, he's never seen the interaction between. He brand new, just showed up today.
Brand new. And so he hands him the contract, and Roman is like, what? And so he puts the contract under his arm and then puts his hand out once more. And now Nick apparently remembers how this goes and gives him the microphone, but hands it to him weird.
His wallet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He handed it to him in an upsetting way.
He handed it to him like he thought he was handing somebody a knife, so he handed it to him handle first, but handle up. And I'm like, what is wrong with you, Nick? Why are you so weird?
Why are you so weird, Nick?
So you finally have we finally have Roman with the mic, which took a little bit longer than it probably needed to. And you've got the fans chanting OTC. And Roman says he doesn't want to confuse anyone. Some things change, but not him. And Roman goes on to say that, he doesn't need Nick and he doesn't need a contract. This is family business. It's bloodline business. And he sure doesn't need a partner, and he doesn't need the help of Cody Rhodes. And he goes on to say that whether or not he's got the Ula Fala, it doesn't matter. He's the tribal chief. And he's not just the original tribal chief. He's the only tribal chief. Don't get it confused. And then he goes on to say that this is still his ring, his show, his WWE. And apparently, as done with it as Cody Rhodes was, Cody's ego got bruised enough that he makes his, he hits his music and he comes out. And he walks down to the ring, grabs a microphone, and looks at Roman and says, "Your ring, your WWE." And that it actually hasn't been since WrestleMania. And then he drops the mic, and Roman drops the mic, and it's like, okay, so Roman versus Cody, is that what's going on? Well, no, because then Solo's music hits, and he comes out with Jacob Fatu. And so you end up with this stare down where Cody and Roman are staring at Solo and Jacob. But then, of course, Tama Chameleon and Tonga Loa come out and attack Roman and Cody from behind. And yeah, they get the jump on Roman and Cody for about 3 seconds before Cody hits a Cody cutter. I think it was on Tama Tonga. And
Loa.
Tama
Loa, right? Tongaloa.
I get it confused. Tongaloa, yeah. And Roman slams Honga onto the mat. I think it was with like a huge Uranagi slam. Mm-hmm. And this gets Roman to grab the contract and sign it. And then he looks at Cody, and Cody extends his arm, and Roman reluctantly gives him the contract because, like, I guess it physically pained him that Cody was doing his shtick. It kind of physically pained me. Cody didn't look right with it. Like, he didn't put his arm out, I don't know how to put it. He didn't put it out with the same panache or flair that Roman does. So it looked weird. But then Cody signs it, and apparently Cody, really didn't mean any of that "I'm done with the bloodline" stuff. Because it didn't take anything other than Roman out there talking the same talk that Roman always talks for Cody to completely reverse course on this.
Yeah. He reminded me of, oh my God, the guy from the Karate Kid show.
Which
you
guy?
know who I'm talking about. The Ralph. Is that right? Is it Ralph?
Oh, yeah, Ralph Macchio's character.
Yes. That guy.
Yeah. So it was good, if not a little cringe, at least at one part. Like, Cody doing the hand thing just didn't look right. But on the whole, it was very good, and it was pretty much Cody signing it, and then them cutting to Solo, who repeatedly stated, he doesn't even like you, like over and over and over and over. Like, he said it so much before SmackDown goes off air.
He don't even like you though.
He doesn't even like you though.
Y'all don't like each other. He don't even like you. I was like, man, I wonder if they like each other.
Yeah, it was hard to tell. I mean, Solo only said it like 25 times. Maybe it would have kicked in for me on the 26th. But any nitpicking aside, it was a really nice progression to the Bloodline storyline, and it very much predominated the through line of SmackDown the entire way. Like, from the first match to everything that kind of was transpiring with, Cody on board. No, he's not on board. Well, hey, let me go talk to Roman. What did Roman say? We'll find out. And so it gave the whole Bloodline, a story arc was the driving force of pretty much all of SmackDown. And on the whole, I would say it was a pretty good SmackDown. There was only really one filler match, and it wasn't a bad match. It just wasn't a interesting match, and that was the one with Piper Niven and Michin. Everything else was actually pretty solid. The match with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, and Kevin's mystery partner, had that whole shtick, and it had some really great fan service with the way Kevin Owens and Randy Orton played off of each other, doing the double draping draping DDTs into the RKO and the stunner. So that ended up being
Mhm.
a really nice match. There was some good segments between different individuals. Um, and then, of course, capping it off with Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes standing in the ring together to face off against the Bloodline. Just creates a very interesting scenario of, like, who's going to stab who in the back first. Because Cody and Roman, that ain't going to work, at least not for long. And I think the only unifying force to either one of them is the fact that they both also are very sick of this new bloodline.
Yeah.
So, on the whole, what would you say of SmackDown? Like, how would you rate it?
Well, I would give it the top tier rating.
I too would give it the top tier rating. Again, even though I had some nitpicks and quibbles, right?
Mhm.
On the
Mhm.
whole, it was very, very good. And I think anybody who
Yeah.
is watching SmackDown for a combination of, like, some quality wrestling and, some good action, coupled with some advancement to the Bloodline story, really would get their money's worth out of this episode. So I'll
Yeah.
agree with top tier. It was very good.
Mhm.
And with that, that brings an end to this week's SmackDown podcast. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Um, I hope if you
Yes.
haven't seen it yet, you go and check out that episode of SmackDown. It was well worth your time.
Mhm.
All right. Gonna go ahead and roll the outro.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.